Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Speak Now. It has been a minute, has it not, Eli?
It's been a little bit, but it's kind of expected at this point until now. We always say we're going to come back. We never say how long
It's true.
it's
It's
going to
true.
be.
We're honest in that sense. We come back, but we keep you guys guessing on when. But yeah, I think we're gonna try to be more consistent with this. We'll see how that goes. But we want to get into talking about some different topics. Just kind of let it flow as it goes. There's a lot to talk about. Football's back, postseason baseball's going on. Just a lot of excitement surrounding the sports arena right now. Yeah, Eli, what have you enjoyed in this season of sports so far?
I mean, it's like Christmas for the sports season for me personally. You mentioned obviously playoff baseball, which is arguably the most electric postseason. I think when a player hits a home run, like you see that in all like the best postseason moments of all time. You see like my favorite moment of all time, like almost in any sport, is Jose Bautista hitting his home run against the Rangers. Like my infatuation for that home run and that like the spiking the bat is just. But I think the NFL season has been really good. I think I've seen a lot of like I feel like defense has revitalized this NFL season. Like obviously the Dolphins are scoring however many points they want a week, but I feel like defense, you'll see like teams are winning games because of how good their defense is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've been excited to see that. It makes it it's like a chess match now in the NFL, which is exciting to see.
Yeah, definitely. In researching some of our like later topics and just seeing how many low scoring games there were, I'm like, bruh, that's just outrageous. Like you have the Bengals that are just like getting blown out, and it's like you got other teams where it's like the Titans holding into some games because they're like keeping them low scoring. The Buccaneers have been somewhat competitive because of their defense. But yeah, let's talk about the excitement for the MLB playoffs. As you talked about, it's like arguably the most electric postseason. I think I agree with you with it just because it's nice that there's a series. I think I'm glad that for baseball it's not single elimination because I think that would be kind of sucky, which is why I'm glad that they got rid of like the one game wild card playoff. Like it was cool at the beginning, but then like kind of ran its course towards the end there. So uh there's a lot to be excited right now. We're down to the last four teams. It's either going to be the Phillies or the D-backs versus the Rangers or the Astros. I'm excited about that Texas series for sure. I think that will be super electric just because, one, it's your division rival that you're playing against for a chance to go to the World Series. And not only that, they're in-state rivals as well. So I think that should be a ton of fun. Texas Rangers have not lost a postseason game yet, Eli. Do you think that that's going to continue?
Um, I'd be silly to think that they're just going to sweep the Astros, no matter how, like, I hate nobody likes the Astros except Astros fans, but like, it's hard to say, like, you can't fault them for their dominance. Obviously, their cheating scandal and all that, but they won it again last year. So, like, what do you say? Unless they're banging trash cans still, it's hard to really doubt them. They have just an electric pitching staff. They have Christian Javier and Justin Verlander. Framber Valdez hasn't been all that great other since his no hitter during the season, but he threw a no hitter this year, so he can do that any game. So it's like, and you have Yordan Alvarez, who's arguably the best DH in the MLB. Obviously, Shohei's a DH when he's not pitching, so like it's hard to put Yordan over Shohei, but like they have one of the best DHs. They have Jose Altuve, who's arguably a Hall of Famer,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if he'll get in because they cheated, but the hard thing about the Rangers is also their bullpen was one of the worst in the MLB. That's the reason they almost didn't make the playoffs. And unless because they still don't have Max Scherzer, they traded all that draft capital for Max Scherzer. I don't know if he's eligible to come back because of his injury, obviously because of playoff rostering for MLB and all that. But I think it all comes down to Marcus Semien and Corey Seager for the Rangers. I think Corey Seager has reemerged as a star this year. I mean, there's a reason they signed him to the massive contracts you see in the MLB. I think he's one of the best infielders in baseball when he's healthy. It's just he stayed healthy this year. So I think if him and Simeon and Adolis Garcia, if those three get going, I think they're just good. I think the only way they win the series, personally, is if their bats stay on fire. Because I don't know if their starting pitching can really hold up against the Astros offense.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair point. Um, I, yeah, I definitely, I know that there's been progress made about Max Scherzer's injury, but I don't think the turnaround is going to be quite there for him to play in the series. Yeah, you're going to kind of bank on him for the World Series, but yeah, I think that this is, I don't know. I think that I think every year in the postseason, there's one of those teams where they just kind of can do no wrong. And you kind of just kind of start to pick out like, all right, whose season is it gonna be to win it all? And I think the Rangers are starting to look like that team. I mean, they shut down the Orioles in like two out of the three games they played. And like the Orioles are one of the best like teams offenses coming into here. Like the Orioles struggled with their pitching for a good chunk of the season and relied on their bats. And you saw Texas kind of deliver. I think Jordan Montgomery has been really key to that. He has been a stud for them. They shut down the Rays too, another like high octane offense. Um, so I think this is going to be a back and forth series, but I do think that the Rangers will pull it out. I think that they're gonna. I don't know. They're just looking to me, and like this is like complete eye test. Like I'm not using statistics or anything like that. Just it's just gut feeling. They're looking to me like a team that's primed for the World Series. But then it's hard to like say that against a perennial team like Houston, which has you know been to this is what their seventh straight championship like series game or series. I think that's ridiculous. So it's like, and they're the reigning champs, as you said. I think it's going to be really hard to overcome that because they don't have like the postseason magic necessarily on their side. They're just good and they're just consistently good in the playoffs, you know? So I think that's kind of how I view them. One's a little bit more storybook. One is like they're just dominant as a team, regular season, postseason. Um, but I think the Rangers pull this one out. And I think
Well,
you'll see them play in the World Series.
I have a tough time relying on Texas, relying on Andrew Heaney, Jordan Montgomery, and Nathan Eovaldi. I, those really aren't proven elite starters. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi so far, I think he's at like a 1.4 or something in two starts. So he's an ace so far this postseason. But
Yeah.
I think in the 7 game series, they obviously usually it's like a 4 man rotation in the playoffs. I don't know if they have that. I think Montgomery and Eovaldi are the two, but I don't know if they have enough pitching firepower to win the game. That's my hard thing. Like they have to be on every single game, um, pitching wise, because they do have a role as Chapman, who every once in a while, but he's so like he's their only proven bullpen guy, and he's way past his prime. So that's the only tough part looking at because their offense. I'm not worried about their offense. They're gonna contribute a couple runs a game, but I don't. I have a tough time trusting their pitching staff. I can't pick the Rangers because of that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, this series will show you whether or not because yeah, like you said, Evaldi is at a 1.32 ERA in two starts, both of them quality. Montgomery in two starts has a 3.27 ERA, and then Andrew Heaney has in one start has a 2.45. So you're gonna see in this series, and Aroldis Chapman hasn't allowed a run this postseason. So you're gonna see in this series whether or not it's yeah they just it's just clicking for the postseason for them, or if yeah they're just it's gonna start coming off the wheels. I think you'll find out pretty early on in the series if Evaldi or Montgomery has a bad start early on, you can kind of lean towards the Stros. Um, I do think, which is this isn't like this is super rare that you have a advantage in this area versus the Astros because they have Dusty Baker as their manager. But I do think that the Rangers have the advantage at manager with Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy, both of them are future Hall of Famers, and no disrespect to Dusty, he's a all time like great manager, but Bruce Bochy 3 World Series wins. He knows what it takes. I don't. They're a lot of fun to watch. I think it will be a entertaining series, for sure though. But you're gonna need someone to step up. One of the names that we haven't listed has to step up, and just do something. Someone's got to like emerge as being like that extra guy for Texas.
Yeah, I think the more exciting series, obviously this ALCS, I think it'll either be a long series or a sweep by the Astros. But I think this next series, I think it'll be more interesting to see how the Diamondbacks perform. I think the NLCS, nobody expected the Diamond. They went on a giant slump after the All-Star game. It was some like they got like 3 wins in like 17 games, something crazy like that. That's not completely accurate, but
Mm-hmm.
um really young team. It's a really like Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly at the pitching staff. And I'd like to think that they can win this series against the Phillies in this NLCS. But I think this series, well, I think it'll be more entertaining. I think the Phillies easily have this series personally. Because like kind of like what we saw with the Orioles, like their young talent fizzled out because they don't have experience. And generally, like last year is the same with the Mariners. The Mariners, a young team, and they got wrecked. I don't know. Once again, the Diamondbacks have Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen. Those are the two big guns. And then I think the Phillies, last year, they have an almost identical playoff run as last year. Their bats are Nick Castellanos and Bryce Harper, and now they have Trey Turner this year, who this last like 2 or 3 months he's back to the old Trey Turner, even better. Honestly, he's been batting like 400, something crazy like that. But I also think Bryce Harper is like the best leader in the MLB, and everybody like looks at how he was like the number one ranked prospect back in like 2010 or whatever, and a lot of people say he hasn't performed to that. But I think Bryce Harper, like these past couple of years, has shown he's still the old Bryce Harper, and he's just electric. I love watching Bryce Harper play. Like he turned from a villain into like everybody loves Bryce Harper. I love that. I've always loved the guy.
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards you. I like the upsets. So like one thing to like talk about with like this postseason, what's been so exciting is for me, like I really love how many upsets that there have been. I was reading an article and it was like LA Times or something like that, some like local LA writer where they were essentially like complaining about the current playoff structure, about how much rest the number one seeds get and how it's like they're not ready for it. And I'm like, bro, and you and I were talking about this in our prep time about if you are a great team, and I get that like this game is big on momentum, and I get that like you want to like keep the momentum flowing. But if you are a good team, it should not matter whether or not you've had a series off or not. Like had some rest days. Like good teams should be able to use that to their advantage. And like there's no excuse for like the D-backs like completely like destroying the Dodgers. There's no excuse for
Well,
that. Like you just didn't come ready to play. And like
well, yeah,
I
Betts and Freeman went 1 for 21 in that series.
yeah, exactly. So here's like you gotta at some point you just gotta give credit to like these teams. And I like how the structure gives us a chance to see teams like the Diamondbacks, like the Rangers, go all the way from the wild card to now they're going to be playing for a chance to go to the World Series. Like I think that that's a lot more fun than seeing 200 win teams year in and year out just duke it out, because then every year we're getting like the same 4 teams that are either like the combinations going to the World Series, and it just gets boring after a while. You're like, oh, the Dodgers are going back, great, like that's one thing I've always liked about baseball is like you haven't had a back-to-back champ since like the turn of the century with the Yankees. Like I like how like it's changed where like these teams can come out of nowhere and just kind of win it all. I think of um like obviously being a Cardinals fan, I'm always going to think of like the 2011 Cardinals where they just kind of came out of nowhere in the last month, like took the wild card from Atlanta and ended up winning the whole World Series. Like that stuff's amazing. So I like how like the structure allows for that to happen. That being said, I do think the Diamondbacks magic runs out here. I'm really hope there's a part of me that hopes that they go to the World Series because I'd like to see them back in the World Series, like first time back since the 2001 season, like that'd be so much fun to see that. But this Phillies team is just primed to win a World Series. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be tough. Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Suarez, like all these guys, like Wheeler has a 2.08 ERA, Nola has a 1.42, and then Suarez has a 1.04, and these are each of them have had two starts. Like that's just ridiculous to me. Like you're not. I think they're really going to struggle because, like to your point, like Merrill Kelly had a great game. Only pitched one game so far. Zach Gallen has been great. Um, but it's like I don't think that they can hold up. They are young. They are a young team. I think the future looks really bright for them, but um, I don't know. I think it's gonna be tough. I don't think that they make it. And then you got Trey Turning batting like 500 too. So I know we're talking about Bryce Harper and the stare down and all that stuff, and Bryce Harper's been super clutch. And don't get me wrong, I think Bryce Harper could win a World Series MVP this year. But Trey Turner, man, like I think that helps when you're hitting the ball that consistently. You're getting on base that consistently. Like he's definitely put them in positions to win ball games. I'm with you on this one. I think the Phillies are gonna win this series, and it might be a sweep.
Well, and like we said, like it's the Diamondbacks made it way further than anybody projected, which personally for me, I think the Dodgers and all this, like everybody talking about the Dodgers, it's like the MLB's royalty. They're one World Series in the shortened year. That's the only time correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's the only time they made it to the World Series. Like in 2020, they made it and won it, but ever since, I don't believe they've made it back since. They've gotten eliminated every year with easily. Like the Padres beat them, the Braves beat them, and then this year was the Diamondbacks. They're
Yeah.
getting killed in the playoffs every year. So, like, I think everybody hates like crowning the Astros as the MLB's royalty, but I don't think the Dodgers should be in that discussion really. I mean, they make it, they win 100 games, but in the end, it's same with NBA and same with the NFL. If you don't win a playoff game, who cares what you did in the regular season?
Yeah, no, true. The Dodgers did make the World Series, I believe, in 2018, where they lost to the Red Sox. But
Yeah.
actually, if you want to talk
Other
about
than
MLB royalty, like even though the Red Sox like have like not been the greatest like over the last couple of years, like talk about how many World Series the Red Sox have won since the turn of the century. Like it's kind of ridiculous where they had the huge curse and they win in '04, they win in '07, they win in 2013, I believe, and then
yep,
um
18.
2018. It's just like they've been getting results, even if they haven't been like the consistent powerhouse like the Dodgers have been. At least they're winning World Series when they get there, and I
Well,
think
you
that
use the same example like the Patriots. They're arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL right now, which we'll get into that, I'm sure. But
yeah,
we call them the royalty still because they can in the Steelers too. Like those are two teams that we don't put in the elite yet. However, I think like this, obviously putting the Steelers and the Patriots in the same category right now is like that's an insult to the Steelers. But like they're both considered NFL royalty, but they're not really at the top right now. So that's kind of how that operates too. Like Dodgers fans are just living like, oh, we won 100 games. It doesn't matter because you haven't really you won your one World Series is the shortened season, which like obviously they still won it, but like the Marlins made the playoffs that year and they had like a under 500 record. Like that year was just that was a weird season.
yeah, no, that was, yeah, it definitely not to take anything away from the Dodgers because they have been like it's something to be said when you've been consistently great for that long. It's just yeah, at the end of the day, you have to think that they've underachieved, and I think it's kind of a slap in the face. It's got to be kind of a slap in the face for them. And again, not to hate on the Dodgers, just to kind of call it how it is. But it's like it's got to be a slap in the face where they have one of, if not the biggest payroll in all of baseball. I don't have like the stats in front of me, so I can't say that. But they are one of the highest spending teams. They've had one of the best farm systems in like the last 10 years. Like they've produced like amazing talent, like Walker Bueller. Obviously, like if you want to go way back, they have Clayton Kershaw, and so it's like they have been excelling on both ends, and then you only have one World Series to show for it, whereas your arch rivals, the San Francisco Giants, um, have three. Like that's gotta be a little bit of a slap in the face. Like the Giants haven't been like the big spenders that the Dodgers were. I know that they tried to be last offseason, but if you want to go back to the World Series years, like who were the guys that were winning the World Series? Aubrey Huff, Edgar Renteria in like his twilight years for the first one, and then it's like Madison Bumgarner, drafted and developed guy, just absolutely dominated the Royals that one year. Sergio Romo against the Tigers, like which
Oh, and the big panda as well, Pablo
yeah,
Sandoval.
exactly. Like these aren't guys that big ticket free agents they went out and signed. They're like either drafted and developed guys, or they're like these aging veterans that had like just a resurgence for the postseason. Juan Uribe the first time too. That's another one. It's like, dude, like, what are you doing, Dodgers? Like that's gotta suck.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's again not to harp on the Dodgers too much, but yeah, I think at some point you got to reevaluate. Like, okay, what are we doing here? Is it just enough to like winning the 100 games? Is that like not as beneficial? Like, um, to the World Series, like the postseason says, how can we better prepare ourselves for the postseason? And I know some people are going to come back and argue that it's the long rest that they have off and all that stuff, and I'm like, at some point you get the buy like almost every year, so like you should be adjusted to it by now. You keep the same players around like Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, like get used to it at some point. Like figure out ways uh to overcome it. Like great teams will do that, and I think that's why you've seen like as much as like I'm with you. Like as much as I hate the Astros and like don't want to see the Astros succeed, at least that they have like consistently been like winning in the postseason and been excellent in the postseason. Like, you know, even like past Astros, like so you go Carlos Correa and George Springer, like, yeah, they're with different teams now, but they had so much postseason success when they were with the Astros. Carlos Correa continues to deliver with the Twins, and it's like, okay, they know how to win in the postseason. Why can't you do it? But yeah, I know that's a big tangent, a little bit of a rant, but I don't like the excuses. You win 100 games, and figure out a way around it. Like
Exactly.
I
Same
wish
with
that my
same.
team would win 100 games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same with the Cowboys in the NFL. So with that, I think MLB we wrapped that up pretty well. I think we we talked a lot about that. I think MLB playoffs. I think it'll only get more exciting.
Hmm.
So we will get to the NFL after a little break, and I think we'll also get our picks. And we have a new little segment we're going to try out during the NFL season. It'll keep us active as well.
That's true.
So after this small break, we'll get that with you. Big NFL talk.
All right, guys, welcome back to Speak Now after our short little break. We're back at it, and we're going to transition from baseball to football. So that's pretty exciting for us because it's been exciting seasons for both of our teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not my fantasy teams, but my real life teams. I tell you,
Well,
whenever my Lions win, my fantasy teams lose. Whenever the Lions lose, my fantasy teams win. It's like I can't get both, but I'd much rather have the Lions be 4-1 right now. I tell you, I'm at an all-time Lions high right now. I mean, obviously your squad has had a lot more success in its past. I've made the playoff. Lions have made the playoffs like 3 times in my existence, maybe 4, if I remember correctly. So never seen a playoff win. So any win I get, it's exciting.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. As a Steelers fan, I say this season's been exciting, and I mean that in a sense of like it's definitely kept me on my toes.
Oh,
Uh, their
those
offense,
Steelers
and
games are something else.
dude, I was fully on the Steelers bandwagon, just like a lot of people were coming into this season. and oh my gosh, were they overhyped? Like, ugh, their offense is awful, dude. It's so bad. It's so painful to watch. They are wasting like a defense that could be a legendary defense because their offense is horrendous and can't stay on the field. And it's so painful to watch. Fire Canada, blame Canada. Is Pickett really the answer? I don't know at this point. I'm like leaning into like all of those different camps right now.
I tell you what, the end of that Ravens Steelers game, that Pickett audible, that gave me a little hope for Pickett. But
That did. Yeah,
I,
that
I'm
gave that
sure
gave me
I'm
hope.
sure you I'm sure you saw the clip of Canada. That clearly wasn't a Canada play call with that
Yeah, he's like,
reaction.
huh, huh, huh.
He was he
Oh,
changed
bro.
the pass protection and the route on Pickens, so he had nothing to do with that play. And right, is it any shock? It was a touchdown, so it wasn't Canada.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Um yeah, dude, it's so frustrating. One of the things um that I kept griping about while I was sitting there watching the game is how many times they run to the right side where it's like that's like your weaker side in terms of run blocking. I feel like Mitch, I don't have the statistics. I could be wrong on that. This is just where it's like Isaac Siamalu is like a noted run blocker. At least he was with the Eagles. And then Broderick Jones has been pretty good in run protection. But then you run it to the side with Chooks and Nate Herbig, which like nothing against those guys, but it's just not your dominant side. And you saw it, like they were having success when they would run to the other side, and then they just keep running to the one side, and it's like, bruh. And like
Well, they're just so unbelievably predictable on
it's so
offense.
bad,
It's
dude.
like when Jalen Warren comes in. The last game they did a little better. Whenever Jalen Warren came in, it's like they knew other teams knew they were going to pass because like
Mm-hmm.
they and on it was like second down and Jalen Warren would come in, like second and long they'd throw Jalen Warren in, and you just go in pass protection because like Najee Harris has been awful. I mean, I hate to say like, his options not getting picked up after this year, which also I do think he's never had a good O line. They've run him into the ground just like every running back they've had. And I don't think he's as in the mud as other people say. They just don't utilize him right. And like he's had some explosive plays, but he has so many negative plays where his yardage outputs are just horrendous.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I was talking to Steve about, which hopefully we can get Steve on the next episode, but because he was asking me should he pick up Jalen Warren in a fantasy league. And I'm like, no, dude, like Jalen's not gonna take here's what I don't like. I don't like when people are saying that Jalen Warren's a better back than Najee, because that's not true. Let's just get that out of the way. At least I don't know if the statistics have changed after the last game, but before last game, Najee was more efficient runner, funnily enough, than Jalen Warren was. Had a better like yards per game, which is like kind of crazy to think about because Najee's yards per game have not been that impressive. Um, I think Najee's biggest struggle and problem is that their offense is so predictable. They've changed it up a couple times in like different games, but it's like still not the most consistent. Where it's like you know that they're running with Najee. You know, like when Najee's on the field, it's not a pass play more often than not. So you know it's going to be a run, so they can just stuff the line, and you see that where it's like so many of the runs that Najee like as soon as Najee gets the ball, he's got nowhere to go because the line's not blocking. There's no holes because the defense knew this was coming, and then it's going to get stopped for a negative gain unless Najee can like somehow get a yard or two out of it. You know, it sucks and it's frustrating to watch. And then when Jalen Warren comes in, it's like, all right, it's a passing down more often than not. So it's like they're going to pass, then they will kind of mix it up a little bit with him. He gets some explosive plays, but outside of the explosive plays, he's not consistent. At least that's my evaluation right now. Take it with what you all. I'm also a frustrated Steelers fan with their offense, so I'm going to be a little bit
I
biased. But
mean,
yeah,
if you're frustrated at 3-2, then I'm pretty sure I that's a pretty nice place to be. You're 3-2 and frustrated. I think I
three and
don't
two in
think
the top of the
they're not a
division right
playoff
now
they're
too.
not a playoff team, but I think I think once Canada's fired, I don't know if Pickett's the answer yet, but I think that's time will tell. I mean, you never know. Like quarterbacks take time sometimes. It's
That's true,
only
but
his
like,
second year.
but what's frustrating about that is you don't really okay in like the grand scheme of things you have time, but like you really don't have that much time. Like so with I get what they wanted to do. They wanted the consistency of coordinator for first year to second year. I don't really think that that was necessary. I think that you kind of shot yourselves in the foot with that because Canada sucks. And like I'm having to censor myself for our podcast, but I just want to go off on Canada because dude has been horrible since he's been in the NFL. Like, it's like it's not even like one of those things where it's like you can like make all these justifications of like why they haven't been productive. It's like no, like literally the dude has just been absolutely trash and hasn't gotten results. And it's yeah, frustrating, but it's like so now what you have to now what you could do, you don't have to do what they're probably going to do. What the Steelers are going to probably do is Canada gets fired after this year. You hire a new offensive coordinator. You give Pickett another chance, right? Pickett gets, but now everyone's a year older after that. If Pickett doesn't pan out, so Cam Hayward's a year older, T.J. Watt's a year older, Minka's a year older, Patrick Peterson's contract is now expired. Like, all right, your defense is built to win a championship yesterday, but your offense isn't ready to win a championship for like a couple of years. And like, I don't know, man. With how good the quarterback class is coming out of college this year, and obviously that can change as the season progresses. I'd be hard pressed to be like, hey, we need to go up and get a quarterback, or trade for someone. I don't know because at this point, I think we can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins as our quarterback. That's just how good the defense is, and Kirk Cousins isn't a bad quarterback. Like he's an efficient quarterback. I know that the knock on him is he doesn't win big games, but give him a wide receiving core of Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, and I think he will keep you in games where your defense can just shut down people and create turnovers.
Yeah,
But
I mean, they they're a tough team to gauge, and I think that's been the NFL season so far. It's just been there's just teams you don't really know what they're built yet, which I think that's something we can discuss here.
mm-hmm.
Um, I think each of us give like one or two like big season reactions so far. We got one from you, but I do want to hear some others other than your because obviously with it's your own team, you're going to be like super hard pressed on stuff,
Yeah.
which rightfully so. I mean, but in the end, you have a Super Bowl. Let's let the Lions have some success this year. That's the hope. But I mean, I could talk about the Lions for a long time, but I'm gonna avoid that. I'll give you one reaction so far that I haven't heard too many people talk about, which for one, I was watching the game last night. I'm sick of these former NFL analysts and all that. I'm sick of their like trashing current players and all that. Like that's been a big topic. Like it was Steve Smith, Antoine Bethea, and Rodney Harrison. They're like trashing these players. I don't think Antoine Bethea has any reason to talk. I heard Antoine Bethea was okay as a safety, but I saw somebody on Twitter like post a clip of Dak Prescott like trucking him. I'm like, he must have this vendetta against him or something. Well, I was watching the game. I was watching like the pregame last night. I'm sick of that. That's like one thing where I've seen so much like overreactions, like, oh, after week one, like this team's done, this is done, this is done. Like the Eagles when they barely beat the Patriots, saying they weren't in the Super Bowl. Like I know that's not really a team reaction, but that's like my first thing. Like I've seen so much negative comments in the NFL. Like nobody's perfect. Like the Lions when they lost one game, everybody's freaking out. Dan Campbell can't win big games. Like Jared Goff sucks and all this and all that. So I'm sick of all these overreactions, these fair weather fans. It's a big rant, but I can't stand like these NFL people just like and for one, like I said, Antoine Bethea, like obviously Rodney Harrison and Steve Smith, you can't not they're Hall of very good players. But like I don't know, I'm sick of these guys trashing them. Like it's not their job. They're analysts. They don't have it's like because Steve Smith literally had like a spat with Jerry Jeudy before the game and then went on television and ranted. Like just do that on Twitter after the game if you have something against them.
What about that asterisk game against the Chiefs for the Lions?
I mean, that's just another thing too. Like I can't believe I forgot about that. It was Mike Tirico, who's I read he's from Detroit. I'm like, this guy is never allowed. I don't want to hear him commentate another football game for the Lions again. Like the audacity to put an asterisk because of an injury, like What, are you going to put an asterisk on everyone with an in are you going to put an asterisk on the Lions win now? They have like 10 players in the injury report. I'm not going to call it an asterisk. Next man out. Why do you have 50? It's if you with an asterisk, you might as well only have 22 people on a team if you're going to have that attitude. Like the Eagles won a Super Bowl to backup quarterback. You didn't hear them talking about an asterisk when Carson Wentz went down, but she was having an MVP year that year. So all these asterisks and injuries things, like the Ravens fans for you, they always talk about their injuries. I don't care. Build a good team and you don't have to worry about the injuries. Like their wide receiver core isn't injured. They just suck. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to put this like negative take, but the Ravens, Lamar Jackson somehow got a 94 PFF grade last week and they lost and they had 10 points. Like how does that work? And then I watched the game film. I the Ravens dropped 3 touchdowns. Like they should have won that game. They handed it to the Steelers. Like the first 3 quarters, they won that game, but they
Hmm.
didn't score and didn't show it. It's just they played better, but they didn't show you. And then the Steelers, Lamar Jackson at the big plays to end the game, which like Stephen A. Smith, he made a take like I don't think Lamar Jackson's worth the money, and all these people like he routinely wins. He hasn't routinely won these last 2 years. Like I don't know that. So yeah, that asterisk thing, you just put another fire into my yeah. It's all that crap about like everybody's saying, and then don't even. I'm not even gonna get into this. I'm just gonna lightly mention it, like the Taylor Swift at football games, all that too. As football fans, we don't care. Like I watched this counter on another thing. They showed her 11 times in the Jets Chiefs game. Like right after a touchdown, they showed her. Now, no football fan cares about her reaction to her supposed boyfriend. Like it's like we're on some like bachelor show. We don't care. Show the fans' reactions, not the girl who's been a Chiefs fan for 2 weeks, who was born in Philly. But that's it. I said I wasn't gonna get on it, but that's one of my reactions. The NFL fans this year have been obnoxious, and analysts. Those two they're out of line.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, for the Chiefs thing, going back to that, not to like again go back to that because that was kind of ridiculous. But here's the thing: this is year two without Tyreek. They've had chances and opportunities to address the wide receiver room, and they've kind of fallen flat with that. Like Sky Moore, I believe, second round pick doesn't look that great. Like Rashi Rice looks like he's ascending, but like, is he enough? Probably not. I don't know.
Well,
The Chiefs don't look unbeatable this year, and I think like that's just even with Kelsey, like they almost lost the Jets.
according to a member of our fantasy football league that's unnamed, apparently Rasheed Rice is keeper of a big keeper value. But I don't. He is not to that level. Like I watched the game yesterday. It's Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, which
Yeah,
Mahomes is he's not playing Mahomes like this year. I will say that. Like he already has like 5 interceptions or something like that, which is like way above his usual.
yeah. Yeah. Well, one of my reactions that I had to go into another thing. I'll since we've been talking about frustrations, I'll talk about some positive things. And um, since I know you probably don't want to like talk too much about the Lions since they're your team, I'll talk about them. I think they're legit, and I think that they have a legit chance to compete for a Super Bowl this year. I think Lions fans should believe the hype. I know that years of misfortune have caused a lot of them to be jaded, especially the older Lions fans, where they're like same old Lions after any mistake or loss. I think Jared Goff is your franchise quarterback, which is a nice feeling to know that you don't have to go find a franchise quarterback after his contract is up. You can just extend him. Um, and I mean, there aside from the 49ers, there's not a team in this league right now that doesn't look beatable. Like I think the Lions can go in and they can beat the Eagles in the like for the playoffs. And I think the Lions, to me, the Lions are more scary than the Eagles are. The Eagles have kind of underachieved. I feel like this year. I know their record doesn't show that, but if you look at all their games that they played, all of them have been close. Like I think
Well,
like
they are struggling mightily. I was reading some of their statistics. Their touchdown percentage in the red zone is 42%, which is putrid for like for an undefeated team, and I think it was the reason Jason Kelsey, like recently, he exploded on the sideline. They can't score in the red zone. It's like DeAndre Swift isn't a power back necessarily. He's a shifty back, but when it comes to like power, like Jalen Hurts is your best power back if it says anything. Like they don't have that like Garrett Blunt they had in past years or LaShawn McCoy. And so them in the red zone, they're getting locked up. And I think it's because they're kind of predictable down there. They have their brotherly shove, but you can't do that outside the 1 yard line. That's a 1 yard play. So I
Hmm.
think that plays into that. Like 42%, like I don't know like the ranking wise, but that's got to be near the bottom half. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like looking at their statistics, they're a team that runs the football very well, and they're a team that stops the run very well. But if you get into a shootout with the Eagles, like I'm not siding with the Eagles this year. Like again, like each of their games have been close, and they've played some teams where they should have blown those teams out. Like I think the biggest point difference that they had was like a two-score game against the Buccaneers, and it's like okay, like the Lions are out here, especially right now. The Lions are rolling right now. Their offense is scoring a ton. Their defense is coming up with big plays. And I think they're only going to get better because you got young guys like Hutchinson that are only going to continue to develop and get better. Jameer Gibbs that's only going to continue to develop. Jameson Williams now that he's back, like getting him more snaps. Once you get Amon-Ra healthy, like it's just I don't know. They're a scary team. I do think, however, that the 49ers are the best team in the NFL right now. So I think that they are going to have a hard time against them. But I think that the Lions could beat them. Like, I think the Lions have a good enough offense and a strong enough defense where they can make it an interesting game in the NFC Championship game, down the road. I'm just gonna throw that out as my prediction. It's those two teams going at it in a few months, and I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I do think right now the 49ers team is the best team. And then aside from that, my other reaction was that Miami's offense could be the stuff of legends this year, dude. Their offense looks historically good. Obviously, it's historically good. They scored 70 points against the Broncos, something that hadn't been done in what, like 60 years or something like that. Like
Yeah, 1960 somewhere around there.
just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, the biggest question is going to be Tua's health. If Tua can stay healthy, um, making sure that your wide receivers stay healthy, getting Devin Achane, and I know I'm pronouncing that name wrong, Achan,
Yeah, Devon Chan, I believe.
Devon Achan. All right, so getting him back healthy is going to be huge, even though Raheem Mostert's been like having a career year. So we'll see what Jeffrey Wilson can do. But they look scary good on offense. I think their biggest concern is their defense. And it's not like their defense is bad necessarily, but
It's not good.
it's
If
not
you get
elite.
it,
Yeah.
it's tough because if they play a good defense like against the Bills, we kind of saw like them get exposed because their defense, I don't know if their defense is bottom half in the NFL, and a lot of the times the teams that win the Super Bowls, like even like the greatest show on turf, the Rams, they had a capable defense back in the day to
Mm-hmm.
go along with the best offense. So it's kind of like, do I think the Dolphins? I think they're a regular season team. Like I've stuck by that. They'll do great in the regular season. They'll probably break records, multiple records, individually and team wise statistically. But I think they're like a divisional round team. I just don't. I don't foresee them. They're going to run into the Bills. They're going to run into the Chiefs, and both those teams have elite defenses thus far. I don't really buy them, but I will say my one last reaction I do have. It's a pretty small one. It's about one specific man. He's a coach of a team underperforming thus far, who should be 3-1. Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley has got to go. He is the worst coach in the NFL. He's a defensive mind. They have the worst. They have like a bottom five defense. Um, they can't stop anyone. Like they did okay against the Raiders, but the Raiders' offense stinks. Like they have Devontae Adams, so I wouldn't say they stink, but the Raiders' offense is like it's a middle of the pack, and they kind of stopped them. But other than that, they've gotten killed. Brandon Staley goes for it at the stupidest places. He went for it. It was the Vikings game, which they got lucky. He went for it. It's like a minute 30 left in the game. They have the lead, fourth down. They go for it on their own 30. And I was just in disbelief when I saw it. They didn't get it, which it was like a 4th and 2. It wasn't even a gimme. Like 4th and 2 is not a gimme in the NFL with like especially this year. And when I saw that, he got lucky that TJ Hawkinson had hands of stone on the last play and dropped in. It got tipped. But that's just a play where like you as a coach, you're consistently like letting your team down. Like their defense stinks as a defensive mind. I've heard that's another. I'm out on defensive minded head coach. I feel like defensive minded head coaches. I feel like often like Kyle Shanahan, um, and all these coaches, the offensive minded guys, Mike McDaniel, all these offensive minded guys have panned out way better than like a Mike McCarthy guy. I don't know if he's considered he hasn't been a coordinator for so long, but I just feel like Brandon Staley, he's just making stupid calls, and I feel like that was like the same with Dane Campbell if he didn't execute this year because he makes some boneheaded plays. Luckily, like he's challenged two easy like calls that like when they show him on the scoreboard, they're obvious. But I think Brandon Staley has to be fired for the Chargers to have any shot this year. They won't fire him because for some reason they didn't last year. They just have like there's some attachment to him. I don't know what it is, but my last reaction, he's got to go, or else they're just wasting Justin Herbert year after year.
Yeah, and with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack,
Yeah,
Keenan
cool.
Allen.
Yeah, and people talking Khalil Mack is washed. He had a 6 sack game. He won them that game. He sacked a granted, it's a rookie quarterback, so he's holding the ball way too long, like most rookies generally do. But 6 sacks, like you had, it's too bad their secondary is incompetent and they have no linebacker. Like they have, I, they lost Tranquil, which is like the only notable linebacker. They had, he's Murray. I can't remember his first name for some reason. Kenneth Murray. He's from Oklahoma. He's a bust so far. He had the game-winning interception, but they're they just lack in a lot of places. I think they just always they're the Chargers. When have they ever done anything really since LT?
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, to give a little bit more of a credit to defensive minded coaches, I mean Pete Carroll, Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick, like Sean McDermott. So
Yeah,
there's a
it.
few, but like I get what you're saying. It's definitely an offensive minded league. Like you look at the, I mean, aside from those guys that I just mentioned, like when you think of like elite head coaches, like Shanahan, um, Andy Reid, um, even Nick Sirianni, like all these guys are like more offensive minded head coaches. So yeah, definitely like you need something there at least. If you're a defensive minded head coach, then your defense better be producing, which like at least like the defensive guys that we just mentioned are. Staley's isn't, like that's concerning to me. Is like if you're a defensive minded head coach and your defense sucks. But
Exactly.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
yeah,
there's so many other things we could talk about in the NFL season, and luckily, that's why we're going to stay active. We're going to every week we're going to give our thoughts on the season. That's the wonderful part about it. We haven't done an episode during season. So much more to talk about.
really,
Um,
honestly.
but this was an idea I brought up to you yesterday, and I definitely think we could evolve it throughout the year. But a little pick 'em action between us two. I think that'd be a little interesting. Give it a little competition. Um, and we'll make up some nice graphic even maybe for every episode. We'll figure that out. But a little, I think ESPN calls it the pigskin pick'em. We're not gonna copyright that, but a little pick'em between us two. Um, and just keep it throughout the season. See who guesses more. Just a little friendly battle, nothing on the line. As of right now.
Yeah.
But do you want to give your picks first for the week? I think this week's I was looking at the matchups this week. It's actually compared to previous weeks, I feel like it's a little technically easier week. But at the same time, the NFL is unpredictable, so you never actually know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, I agree with you. It kind of felt pretty easy going through this. Like I'm like, oh, Audacia win. So I had to like challenge myself and be like, all right, I need to pick a few upsets because it's gonna happen. Um, let's start with the Ravens and Titans game. So we can both give. How about we both give our picks for that, and then we'll just go to the next game.
Yeah.
I'll start. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. Both defenses have like been a little bit inconsistent, but like have like held high octane offenses to like minimal points. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think the Titans ultimately can't make the splash plays required to beat Lamar Jackson. They only have one interception this year as a defense. That's 29th in the league, 14 sacks as a defense, which is like middling 15th. I think the Ravens defense dominates this game, and I think they win. Have the score. I don't know if we're doing scores, but I did some scores. So 20-6, Ravens take that one from the Titans.
Yeah, I have the same pick. I have the Ravens in this game. I do think it'll be a little more high scoring. I think the Titans have started to find a little something. They're getting D-hop the ball more. They're using Ty Spears more, which I actually really like. I think Derrick Henry's still their back for at least this year, but I like mixing it up a little more because he's 30. You can't really give him that 300, 400 carry range. But I do think the Ravens win this in like the 28 to 17, 28 to 21 range. I don't think it's going to be a huge win for the Ravens. I think I think they'll rely on the pass game. I think the Titans run defense with Jeffrey Simmons is pretty formidable. So I do think Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews will have a good game. But I think the Ravens will handle the Titans. I think the Titans are just they're going to go through a rebuild after this year.
Yeah, everyone talking about how this is like going to be a bounce back game for Lamar and like all that kind of stuff. Like honestly, against the Titans, I wouldn't call it that. Like this doesn't prove anything if you beat the Titans. For the next game, Panthers and Dolphin at the Dolphins. Uh, Dolphins, they're the top offense in the league. They are number one in like passing yards, rushing yards, like total yards. Like they're just absolutely dominant. And I think they destroy the Panthers. I think the Panthers D allows back to back 40-point games, obviously allowing over 40 points to the Lions last week. And I have it as a 41-17. Not going to overthink this one. Dolphins just crush them.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. Dolphins pretty easily, 20 plus. Think they'll probably go 35-7, 35-10 around that range. Because I think after a while, I think they're just going to drain the clock. I don't think um they don't have Devon Chain, so it'll just be Raheem Mostert, which hasn't changed anything. They started that start of the year um that way. So I do think someone like Jalen Waddle is going to have a big game, but I got the Dolphins.
All right, Commanders at the Falcons. If the Commanders put up 30 points, I think that they win this game. Atlanta has yet to hit that mark. Um, the most points allowed by Atlanta's defense is 24. That was to the Packers. Washington ranks 24th in rushing yards allowed, which is 133.6 per game. So I have this as a Bijan redemption game. He's kind of been hit a little struggling the last couple of weeks, but I think he comes back strong on this one. Low scoring game, relatively 24-14. Falcons take this one from the Commanders.
Yeah, once again, I'm same boat as you. I got the Falcons winning this game. The Commanders, their pass defense is horrendous. I think Ritter has another good game on in the air, like he did last game, over 300 yards for the first time in his young career. And I got the Falcons 28-10.
All right, maybe we'll finally have a different pick on this one. So Saints at the Texans. Um, what I think is going to happen, I think the Saints D gets the first Stroud interception of the year. So Stroud throws his first pick to the Saints D. The Saints D is top five in points per game allowed, total yards per game allowed, passing yards against per game, interceptions. They're third. They're top 10 in rushing yards against per game. So I think the defense really controls the game for the Saints. And I think that Kamara being back with the Saints offense, I think you started to see it more last week. He just gives their offense more life. He gives Derek Carr a little bit more to work with. And I just think that ultimately Stroud has some rookie struggles against them, even though he's been spectacular so far this year. I have this as a little bit of an upset, 27-7 or 27-10 Saints win against the Texans.
Well, unfortunately, we're on the same path again. I had the Saints. I had the Saints pretty easily, actually. I think the Saints. Even though they're 3-2, I think they've underperformed. I think they're the best team in the NFC South. I think the Bucks will fall off a bit. Their defense spectacular. I think Derek Carr's a good quarterback. He's getting a lot of flack. He has a shoulder injury, so he had one bad week. Last week he bounced back. I got the Saints 24-10. I think Stroud's gonna have his first rough game, like you said.
Nice. All right. All right. Maybe this one will be a little bit different. Colts at the Jaguars. Jaguars won the first matchup against the Colts 31-21, I believe, or something. It was pretty handily. Colts without Anthony Richardson, obviously Gardner Minshew starting. I believe Colts are also starting rookies cornerbacks as well against the Jaguars. But I have an upset. I have Gardner Minshew revenge game is what I'm calling this. He has been pretty solid in the time that he's played with Richardson out. And with Jonathan Taylor back healthy, this is his second week back now, so he's going to get a little bit more touches. Zach Moss has been really solid. I know that the Jags run defense has been pretty solid, but I think that the Colts have just been able to run the ball pretty well. And with Jonathan Taylor, I think I think he's gonna have a good game this year. He's their key to success, essentially against the Jaguars. Remember, he wasn't there the first time that they squared off, and the Colts have been a pretty solid team on defense since that first game. So I have them winning this one 24-20.
Yeah, we do differ in this one. I got the Jags. The Colts, I think, are a team that's overperformed. I don't think. I think the Jags have had a pretty stifling defense past couple games against the Bills and the Falcons. I think the Jags handle them. Their offense has a lot of firepower. Etienne finally got going last week. I would take the Jags 31-21 this game. I believe same score as last game, but I like the Jags pretty easily.
All right, Seahawks at the Bengals. I think Joey B gets pressured early and often, but I still think that this ends up being a high scoring game. Seattle has allowed a lot of passing yards as a defense, but I think that they'll clinch it late due to their pressure against Joey B. I have Seahawks winning this one 31-27.
Yeah, I also have the Seahawks. I like the Seahawks in this game. The Bengals not on them this year until Joe Burrow's fully healthy. I like the Seahawks with Devon Witherspoon. And the Seahawks defense, I think they performed really well this year. I would have the Seahawks 28-21. Pretty middling scoring game. I like the Seahawks.
All right, next, Vikings at the Bears. I think this is going to be an interesting game because obviously without Justin Jefferson, this is a make or break game. The Vikings being 1-4, they definitely expected more out of the season. So the big question marks is, can Cousins perform well without Justin Jefferson? I think he does. I think Cousins delivers against this Bears D that has allowed almost 300 passing yards per game. They're 31st in passing yards a game, and they're 30th in points against per game. So this Bears defense has been atrocious. And even without Justin Jefferson, I think Cousins still has enough to make it happen. And I do have it being somewhat of a close game because the Bears have been coming on as of late, but I still think Vikings pull this one out 29-20.
Yeah, we differ in this one. I like the upset. I like the Bears this week. Justin Jefferson relying on Addison, which he's questionable, so we'll see on that. And then KJ Osborne. I'm a fan of the Bears this week. I think the Bears will keep the highest scoring offense with DJ Moore. And I like the Bears 35-21.
Nice. All right. 49ers at Browns. I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm not going to take too long. Not even close. 35-6. 49ers crush the Browns.
Yeah, not much thought on this. I think the Browns will somewhat contain Purdy. They have, I believe, the best ranked defense in the NFL thus far this year. But I think the 49ers will still handle them 28-3. Low scoring game, but the Browns are still without Deshaun Watson.
All right. Patriots at the Raiders. Belichick outcoaches his protege in a close game. I have the Patriots rebounding and winning this one 16-13.
Yeah, I like the Raiders in this one. I think the Patriots with Mac Jones, they're dysfunctional. I think Devontae Adams will have a big game with this weak secondary without Christian Gonzalez for the rest of the year. I like the Raiders 28-10.
Lions at Bucks. I think the Bucks stay competitive in the first half of this game, but they ultimately will tire out against this high octane Lions offense. Lions win this one 21-9.
Yeah, I think this one, they were calling last week a trap game for the Lions. I think this is the big trap game with the injuries. I do think the Lions pull away with it. Golf's playing, so that's all that really matters. And I think the Lions will handle the Bucks offense. I think the Lions will win 31-24.
Cardinals at the Rams. I think the Rams passing attack goes off against this defense that can't stop much, and it's 35-13. Puka Nakua and Cooper Cup just have nice games for the Rams.
Yeah, not much solid for here, either for me. I got the Rams here, by 10 plus against the Cardinals. Cardinals are starting to fall off a bit.
Yeah. All right. Eagles at the Jets. So we got three more. So Eagles at the Jets. The Jets' key to winning is running the football successfully, which Philly is great at stopping, and the Eagles' key to winning is running, which the Jets have struggled to stop. They're 29th in the league. So it kind of seems like the Eagles should just run amok against the Jets. But for some reason, the Eagles have kept games close, like we talked about earlier, and the Jets have found themselves competitive against teams that they shouldn't be. They beat the Bills earlier in the season, even without Aaron Rodgers. They almost beat the Chiefs, probably should have beat the Chiefs. And so I have them getting an upset against the Eagles 24-21.
Yeah, I'm opposite on this. I like the Eagles in this. Not much thought for me once again. I think the Eagles will handle the Jets, 35-28. I think Zach Wilson will have a good game, not a great game.
Giants at the Bills. I think Josh Allen and company rebound after an upset to the Jags. And I think the Bills D gives Daniel Jones nightmares all day. It's 35-14 Bills over the Giants.
Once again, no thought on this game. Um, we're not sure if Daniel Jones is even going to play. So I'm taking Buffalo pretty easily.
All right. Cowboys at the Chargers. Even though the Chargers defense has not looked the best, I do think Dak's struggles continue. He hasn't looked good really all season, and I think the Chargers do enough to win this game 32-17.
Yeah, I like the Chargers this week. I think the Chargers will, off their bye week, they'll be fresh. I think the Chargers win this game 35-21. And with that, the picks are in. We'll see how they go. I'm intrigued to see who does better this week. You'll have to stay tuned for next week for that. This has been another episode of Speak Now. Welcome back. And as our phrase says, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Peace.
I don't know what you told. I'm gonna make you fall. Yeah, break the mold. How can you not be so? Yeah, putting the hours in, pushing the pen to the pen, putting that 10 to the 10, blowing out the 616. This is it. Yeah, did it again.